The core of almost every great song is a great melody, no matter really the genre. And even in styles such as progressive house, organic house, which is a bit, less commercial, you still want something catchy and emotional, like a proper hook. And in this kind of styles, you have kind of a basic, a repetitive melody, which is nice, but it also means it can easily start to sound boring. And the difference between something that just sounds like an 8-minute long loop with a bit more professional sounding track, something from Sasha, Guy J, or maybe a bit more melodic stuff like March, the difference is usually not the melody itself, it's more about everything happening around the melody. So how do you keep a simple melody interesting? Well, it's all about variation and support. So in this video, I'm gonna show you 3 ways to keep your simple melody interesting and keep it interesting over time without overcomplicating it. And make sure to watch all the way until the end, because I will show you kind of a bonus trick that I use all the time to really, elevate the track and give it that final touch. All right, let's get into it. This is the track I'm working on right now, and I will just play you through the idea and you will hear how it sounds without me adding any stuff or before I've added any stuff. All right, kind of a cool idea, kind of like progressive house meets disco, I would say. And this track definitely has potential, but the melody is very easy, very basic, and also very repetitive. So it starts to get boring very fast. So I will show you the first thing I do to make it sound a bit more interesting. The first thing I do is to take a look at the actual melody itself and try to give it a bit more variation. And a good way of doing this is to play around with different automations. And the first thing I did was to play around with filter, and I will just show you how it sounds with that filter automation. 1 second. Yeah, nothing crazy, I'm just I've just put an automation on the filter, but I'm really giving it some variation, so it not constantly builds up. It builds up and down, up and down, up and down. And I placed it at the end of each round of the melody, basically, to really like enhance, that feel. So that's the first thing I did. But then I also put on a beat crusher and played around with the mix and the downsampling, basically, to really enhance, that building effect I get from the filter as well. So you can see here, this is the automation of the downsampling, and then I also have automation on the filter, on the mix. And this is how it sounds with the beat crusher automation. Here, it gives some kind of cool effect. And especially here. Yeah, so nothing crazy, but it really gives this kind of boring melody a bit more variation. And all in all in the track, it sounds like this now. You know, it instantly sounds a bit more interesting. And especially like at this part here. Dun, 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 dun. You know, it feels very much alive, I would say. Yep, so that's the first easy way of making your melodies a bit more interesting. The second thing I usually do to make it a bit more interesting is to add an additional instrument. I stop looking at the actual melody and start to look at all the things happening around the melody. And one cool thing you can do to really give the track a bit more variation and also make the track a bit more full is to add some kind of ARP melody. And here I added this kind of ARP, which sounds like this. You know, very easy, not something crazy. But what I do is, first of all, I just have a filter on it to make it constantly build throughout the whole drop. So this is like the major tension and release, I would say, or major build, you know, you make it constantly build. But then I also have this minor and major tension and releases, basically. And one of my favorite ways of giving a quite boring sound a bit more variation and make it feel really much alive, and without using a filter, is to use some kind of distortion and automate the distortion or the drive of the distortion, basically. And that's exactly what I've done here. I have the decapitator, as you maybe can hear, that's distortion on the ARP lead here. And what I do is that I do, it looks crazy, but this is very easy. In the same way as I did pretty much here with the filter on the main chords, I do some variation with the drive on the distortion. And as you can see here, it's like, you know, it feels very much alive, like, and gives like this really alive feeling to it. And together with the melody and with the rest of the track, it really lifts the track to the next level and starts to make these boring lead sounds a bit more interesting. So all in all, it sounds like this now. Instantly a bit more interesting. But I think like when you're listening through the whole drop, it still sounds a bit boring, especially at this part here, you know, when it's when you get to the second round of the drop, basically. So I will show you some final things you can do to make it a bit more interesting over time, basically. What I've done basically is that I've added a lot of ear candies. I like to play around with both like vocal chops and vocal ear candies, and also a bit more, you know, melodic, like synths and different melodies and stuff. So what I've done basically is that I've added a few like vocal chops like this. Let me play around. And something like this. And also some vocal atmosphere like this. Very subtle, but gives some atmosphere, you know. And together with the track, it now sounds like this. And you know, it really plays well with the actual melody, because when the melody stops, you get this like vocal chops here, which really keeps the melody interesting and acts like a respond to the actual melody, I would say. But then I also added some different melodies and transitions. So I have this kind of melodic transition here, which like introduces the next chapter all the time, basically. You can hear it like here. You know, really introduces the next chapter. But then, as I mentioned, when we get into the second part, you want something new. You know, you want to keep the same melody, but you want to add new stuff to keep the listeners engaged. I'll show you what I've done. So I added a couple of different melodic stuff here. So I have first all this kind of, pad or synth or whatever you call it. So nothing crazy. And then I've added this melody here, which is 3 synths that are later. Yeah, you know, nothing crazy, but together with the track, it sounds really cool. So I will show you how it sounds. So I would really say like this part here really gives the second part of the drop some new variation and keeps it interesting pretty much. As I promised, I will show you a bonus trick that I almost use every time. And it's a very easy trick, but it really elevates the track and gives it a bit more tension, basically. What I've done is to basically added a lot of different tension chords and tension strings. So first of all, I have this kind of sound here. Oh, sorry. No, it plays the same chord. And then I have a tension string, as I call it, a tension string, so tension string chords. And it's basically just the chord, E chord. And then I have the tension strings low, which is the same chords, but just 1 octave lower. And then I have a string note, high string note. And together they sound like this. And this is really good. It's a really good idea to automate this throughout the track. Now I don't have some crazy automation because it's just the final drop, but probably in the beginning of the track I would have this very low in both in volume, but I would also have the filter very low, so you can barely hear it, and then you make it like progress over time throughout the track. But all in all, together with the track, it sounds like this. All right, I hope this video helped, and if you want me to explain any part more in depth, just let me know in the comment down below. And if you want to see more of this, I have a bunch of other videos here on the channel, so just make sure to watch them and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more like this. And feel free to reach out to me here on YouTube or on any kind of social media. I have all my links down below, and I'm always happy to help. Okay, until next time, have a wonderful day.